Welcome, everyone. This is not just another English video, this is your moment of transformation. The moment where something inside you finally decides to rise. Maybe you've been trying for months, maybe even years, to speak English fluently, but every time you open your mouth, fear walks in before your words do. Your heart beats faster, your mind freezes, and suddenly, all those words you learned disappear. I know that feeling. I've been there. My name is Alex, and I wasn't born confident. I wasn't born fluent. I was just a person who was tired of staying silent. But that silence became my teacher, and that fear became my fuel. Because the truth is, fluency isn't just about words, it's about courage. It's about the moment you stop saying, maybe one day, and start saying, today. And today, right here, right now, is where your English journey begins. Forget about grammar rules for a moment. Forget about vocabulary lists and difficult textbooks. What you need is not another tip. What you need is a new mindset, a fearless one. You don't need to sound perfect to be powerful. You don't need to know 1,000 words to be confident. You just need one thing, belief. Belief that you can grow, that you can improve, that your voice deserves to be heard. You see, English isn't just a language. It's a key that opens new doors, to jobs, friendships, dreams, and self-worth. When I started, I couldn't even say a full sentence without hesitation. People laughed. Some corrected me. Some ignored me. And every time I failed, my heart broke a little more. But one day, I looked in the mirror and said to myself, Alex, you're not broken. You're becoming. That's when everything changed. Because fluency doesn't start with a word, it starts with a decision. A decision to speak, even when you're scared. A decision to practice, even when you don't see progress. A decision to stand tall, even when your voice shakes. So here's step 1. Talk to yourself in English every day. I mean it. Talk to yourself like you're your own coach. When you wake up in the morning, don't just think, speak. Say, good morning, Alex. Let's do this. When you make tea, say, I'm making tea right now. When you look in the mirror, say, you're improving. When you feel tired, say, it's okay. I'll rest and rise again. You might feel silly at first. You might even laugh. But remember, fluency isn't learned in silence, it's built in sound. Your tongue, your lips, your voice, they need training like muscles. And every time you speak, even if it's alone, you're not just practicing English, you're rewiring your brain for confidence. When I began doing this, I used to record myself at night. 2 minutes. That's all. I'd talk about my day, what I did, what I felt, what I learned. At first, my voice trembled. I made mistakes. I paused too much. But then, one night, I played back my old recordings and realized something. I was no longer afraid of my own voice. I had started to own it. That's when I knew I was changing. You see, the secret of fluency isn't perfection, it's connection. You have to connect your thoughts to your voice, your emotions to your words. You don't need to memorize English, you need to live in it. When you speak to yourself, you remove fear. When you listen to your own voice, you start believing in it. When you practice with emotion, English stops being a subject, it becomes a part of you. Let's be real, the world won't wait for your perfect grammar. The world listens to energy. And your energy changes when you stop being afraid. I want you to feel that fire inside, the same one I felt when I stopped running from my mistakes and started learning from them. Every time you speak, every time you push one word out of your mouth, you're breaking an old fear and building a new strength. So, from today, promise yourself this. I will speak. I will practice. I will rise. No matter how small your sentences are, no matter how slow your progress feels, keep going. Because the moment you speak, you've already won half the battle. Remember, fluency doesn't live in your mind, it lives in your voice. It grows with every sound, every sentence, every second you dare to speak. You can read thousands of books and still be silent. Or you can open your mouth today and start transforming. When I began speaking daily, I didn't realize how much it would change me. Not just my English, but my identity. I started walking taller. My thoughts became clearer. My dreams felt closer. That's the magic of English. It gives you a new version of yourself. So, if you're still afraid, it's okay. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is your signal that you're growing. Use it. Feel it. Speak through it. You're not here to impress anyone, you're here to express yourself. Now, take a deep breath. Feel your heartbeat. It's not fear, it's energy. That's the sound of your voice waiting to come alive. Speak it. Whisper it if you must. But don't let another day go by in silence. This is your transformation. This is your voice. And today, right now, is the day Alex begins again. The nights felt longer now. Alex often found himself staring at the ceiling, replaying the same thought again and again. Was all this even worth it? Every failure echoed louder than the last. Every mistake whispered, "You're not enough." But somewhere beneath all that noise, a quiet part of him refused to die. That little spark, the one born from pain, it kept burning, refusing to let him quit. He remembered the first time he tried to speak in front of people. It wasn't a big stage or a class. It was just a few friends at a small cafe. He had practiced his lines for days, but when the moment came, the words slipped away. His accent felt heavy, his tongue froze, and laughter filled the room. It wasn't cruel laughter, but it cut him deeply. He smiled back, pretending it was fine, but inside he promised himself, "I'll come back stronger." That night, as he walked home, he looked at the reflection of streetlights on wet roads and whispered, "One day, they'll listen to me and feel it." He didn't mean perfect grammar or big vocabulary. He meant emotion, truth, soul. The next morning, he began again. Small steps, quiet practice. When others were busy with their phones, he listened to short recordings. When the world slept, he read out loud, slowly shaping each sound until it felt right. The walls became his audience, his mirror became his teacher. There were no claps, no likes, no followers, only silence. But in that silence, something powerful was growing. Discipline. Still, there were days when it all felt pointless. Some mornings he couldn't find the strength to continue. The words would stick, his mind would go blank, and he'd ask himself, "Why am I even doing this?" He'd see others move ahead, new jobs, better lives, and he felt left behind. But every time he wanted to stop, he remembered the version of himself who once couldn't say a single word with confidence. He couldn't let that person down. One evening, as he sat by his window, rain falling softly outside, he began speaking again, just small phrases. "I can do this. I am learning. I'm getting better." It wasn't about English anymore. It was about belief. About convincing his mind that he was not broken, just becoming. Each repetition became like a heartbeat, steady, real, alive. He started to notice little changes. His sentences flowed smoother, his pauses felt natural, and sometimes he even smiled while speaking. Confidence didn't arrive in a single day. It crept in slowly, quietly, like dawn after a long, dark night. Weeks passed. He started recording his voice on his phone. At first, he hated what he heard, the tone, the hesitations. But instead of deleting them, he kept listening. Each recording was proof of progress, a small step forward. "This is me," he said once, listening back. "Not perfect, but stronger than yesterday." He began to understand something profound. Consistency wasn't just about doing something every day. It was about trusting the process even when you didn't see results. It was about showing up again and again, no matter how tired, how afraid, how uncertain. One morning, he decided to speak in front of a small group again. Not to impress them, but to test himself. His hands were shaking, but his heart was steady. He began speaking slowly, his voice soft but clear. For the first time, people didn't just listen, they felt what he was saying. There was a pause when he finished, a quiet moment that felt like a victory. Not because they clapped, but because he knew, he had done what once seemed impossible. After that day, Alex's routine became sacred. Every morning he would spend 10 minutes listening, 10 minutes speaking, and 10 minutes writing his thoughts. He didn't chase perfection anymore, he chased connection. And then one morning, something unexpected happened. He was walking to work, listening to a conversation in another language clip, when suddenly, he understood everything without translating. It was like a door in his mind had quietly opened. He stopped on the street, smiled, and felt tears in his eyes. That small moment meant everything. It was proof that the seeds he'd been watering were finally growing. That night, as he wrote in his journal, he realized how far he had come. The boy who once feared speaking now looked forward to it. The one who once felt invisible now had a voice that could reach hearts. He thought of those nights when no one believed in him, when he doubted his own worth. If only they knew, he whispered, smiling. If only they could see how failure turned into fuel. He started helping others, not as a teacher, but as a guide. He told them that learning anything meaningful takes time. You don't need to be perfect, he said. You just need to be consistent. His eyes carried the weight of experience, and his voice carried something more, hope. He began recording small messages online, sharing what he learned. People started listening, connecting, relating. They didn't care about his accent, they cared about his heart. And that was all he ever wanted, to be heard, to be understood, to matter. Each message he shared was honest. He spoke about fear, about courage, about falling and standing again. He told them how every repetition rewired his mind, how every mistake was a teacher, not an enemy. He told them how the real transformation began not in words, but in willpower. Alex no longer needed validation. He didn't chase applause or numbers. He had already won, not by becoming perfect, but by refusing to quit. And as he sat under the stars one quiet night, he realized something. Growth doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides inside small habits, long nights, and quiet victories. It's built one word, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. He looked at the horizon, took a deep breath, and smiled, not because he had reached the end, but because he finally loved the journey. For Alex, this was never about English anymore. It was about reclaiming his confidence, his courage, his voice. He whispered to himself, I made it this far. I can go further. The sun rose quietly that morning, soft light touching the edges of Alex's window. He sat by his desk, holding a notebook filled with messy scribbles, broken sentences, and dreams that once felt too far to reach. But today, as he flipped through those pages, he saw something different. Not mistakes, not failure, but proof. Proof that he had walked a long, rough road and survived every doubt, every laugh, every moment of fear that tried to break him. He took a deep breath. The room was silent, but his heart was loud. It whispered, You made it here because you never gave up. That same day, Alex decided to record his first full video. Not for fame, not for numbers, but to share his truth. He turned on the camera. His hands trembled at first, but when he looked into the lens, it felt like looking into the eyes of the person he used to be. That scared, shy version of himself who once couldn't even say hello. He began speaking slowly, with warmth in his tone. Hey my friends, he said softly. If you're struggling, if you feel stuck, I've been there. I know how it feels when every word feels like a wall, when people talk and you can't find your voice. But I want to tell you something. You can find it. You just have to keep trying. Each word carried emotion. Each pause carried a story. The words weren't perfect, but they were real, full of heart, full of fight. When he finished recording, he sat quietly for a moment, staring at the screen. He smiled. This is me, he whispered. Not who I was, but who I've become. He uploaded that video without expecting much. But the next day, he woke up to messages, real people thanking him, telling him they felt the same. One person wrote, Your story gave me hope today. Another said, I thought I was the only one struggling, but now I know I'm not alone. Alex read every message with tears in his eyes. The same voice that once trembled now carried comfort to others. That was his victory. That was his purpose. Days turned into weeks. His confidence grew not because of likes or comments, but because he had found meaning. Every morning before recording, he reminded himself why he started, not to be perfect, but to be real. He spoke about consistency, about believing in small steps, about how growth is not a straight line but a journey full of ups and downs. One evening, he met a young student named Leo who was struggling to speak in public. His voice shook, his hands trembled, and he said, "Alex, I can't do it. I'm too scared." Alex smiled gently. "You're not scared of speaking," he said. "You're scared of being judged. But once you stop trying to please everyone, you'll finally hear your own voice. That's the voice that matters." They practiced together for weeks. Leo made mistakes, laughed, stumbled, and tried again. And one day, he spoke fluently, his voice strong and full of belief. Alex clapped quietly, his chest full of pride. "See," he said. "You already had it inside you. I just helped you find it." That night, as Alex walked home, he felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about learning English anymore. It was about growth, courage, and the power of persistence. Every person he helped reminded him why his own pain was never wasted. It had turned into purpose. Months later, Alex was invited to speak at a small community event. The thought scared him, but he accepted. On the day of the event, he stood backstage, heart pounding like a drum. He looked at the crowd and remembered every failure that brought him here. Every "you can't" that pushed him harder. When his name was called, he walked up slowly, the lights bright on his face. For a second, the old fear tried to return, the shaky hands, the dry throat, but then he smiled. He remembered that boy in the cafe, the one who couldn't speak a word. He wasn't that boy anymore. He began softly, "Years ago, I couldn't even introduce myself without fear. Today, I stand here not because I'm fearless, but because I kept going." The crowd listened in silence. His story wasn't polished, but it was powerful. He spoke about consistency, how little habits built confidence, how repetition rewired the brain, how belief changed everything. He spoke with his heart wide open, each sentence wrapped in truth. By the time he finished, people stood and clapped. But Alex didn't need the applause, he just needed that 1 second of silence before it began, the moment he saw faces in the audience feeling his words. That was enough. Later that night, sitting alone on his balcony, Alex looked up at the stars. They seemed closer than ever. He whispered to himself, "You did it." But then he corrected himself, smiling. "No, we did it. Me and every version of myself that refused to quit." His phone buzzed again, more messages from people he had inspired. He read one and smiled. Asterisk, "Your words made me believe again." Asterisk. He closed his eyes, the wind brushing softly across his face. For a long time, he sat there, thinking about how far he had come. He didn't have everything figured out, but he finally understood that success wasn't about reaching the top, it was about never stopping the climb. He picked up his notebook and wrote one line, asterisk, "The power is not in being perfect, but in being consistent." Asterisk. Then he turned off the lights, but inside, his heart was still glowing. Somewhere deep down, Alex knew this was only the beginning. Because every day, every small step, every quiet practice was not just improving his English, it was transforming his life. And as the night faded into dawn, he whispered to the world, "Keep going, my friends. Keep believing. Because even when no one sees your effort, it's changing you, quietly, beautifully, forever."